Welcome to Magic.ai, the operating system for hospitality. At Magic, we know an operating system is more than just software and systems. It's about people, because hospitality is nothing without them. So supporting the hospitality community is our number one goal.
I think there needs to be more of a support system. Like, you have to love this business and you have to love every aspect of it, including sharing tribal knowledge on what is successful and also tribal knowledge of what is a failure.
Founded by lifelong experts, we're building the place where everyone in hospitality, from seasoned pros to first-timers, can gather, share, and grow together. Plus, we're crafting scalable tools and AI-supported software to boost your business. Dive into our vibrant community platform packed with meaningful conversations and robust tools and templates designed just for you. Need more? Our custom software solutions have got you covered. From recruiting and staffing to digital playbooks and dashboards, we're working on building a unique hub of resources unlike any other. Magic is your single point of origin for important conversations, accessible tools, valuable insights, and more. Join us at Magic.ai. The evolution of hospitality is here.
Do you believe in what you're doing? Or is this the next trend? This is not a get-rich scheme. It's going to be agonizing. It's going to be hard. But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to start small and then just do it.
One of 7 siblings, Chef Yia Vang was born in a Thai refugee camp where he lived until his family resettled in central Wisconsin. A trained chef who started his career working as a dishwasher, Yia uses food to tell a story and believes that every dish has a narrative. Through sourcing what's in season and combining local traditions with those from his family and cultural traditions, Yia brings Hmong flavors to American palates and invites people to change how they think about food by considering the influences in each bite. Yia is the host of Outdoor Channel's Feral, along with TPT's Relish series, and has been featured on National Geographic and CNN's United Shades of America.
The quote-unquote trick that we tricked people is to think that we're actually a restaurant, but we're not. We're here about building community. So the community starts within our front house, back house, to our vendors. That's why vendors are important. That's the community we've been. The system actually starts with putting on your chef coat, having a clean apron, having a clean station, making sure you have the 10 folded blue towels or whatever. The system actually starts from there. We always say that if you want to know our people, you got to know our food, because our cultural DNA is intricately woven into the foods that we eat. First and foremost, we always say this is a love letter to my mom and dad, and literally 5 years ago, I wrote a letter to them and never sent it because Hmong men we keep our emotions inside. And so I wrote this letter and I was able to give it to our architect and say, how do we build a restaurant out of this? And then our architects actually literally took that letter and said, okay, we have some ideas. And they read it, as a team together. And then they used that as some of the literal building blocks to how we built this restaurant out. And so that was really cool. And so when you come into the restaurant, Carol and Matt, hope you both get a chance to come in here. I can walk through every single little piece of what was part of that letter that was sent out, to our architect team, Christian Bean architect, And so for me, I'm a very literal person. I'm not I'm a cook at the end of the day. So it's we can all beautifully talk about food, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to throw down, So I'm a literal person. So for me, it's you gotta be literal. It's a love letter to them. It started out as a love letter to them, and so now we have this, really beautiful restaurant. The other thing is when we started, where we started everything, especially 6 years ago with Union Hmong Kitchen, our first place. People would always ask, "Well, what's the concept? What's the concept?" And it's such a really weird word, right? What's a concept? Or it's our question. What's the concept? And the one thing that I got so annoyed with is I'm well, it's a restaurant. What's the concept of any restaurant? They make food, people sit down to eat it, and they have a great time. But then I saw all these other restaurants that try to reword it. So when people come in, they're going to sit down and we're going to, host them. And I'm I don't care if you're Burger King or if I don't care if you're, the Michelin star place. It's the same thing. You're
same
hosting
concept,
people,
same idea.
they're eating. Yeah. So I'm look, if you're looking for giraffes and tigers to come out and we're going to have big sparklers, that's not the concept, quote unquote concept. So, I had my buddy help me. I'm hey, let's figure out, for VNI, if there's a concept, what are people, what's the real question they're asking? My degree in college, I didn't go to culinary, so my degree was in interpersonal communication was my degree. So when my first communications class, our professor said to us, he said, what's more important, the interpretation of the message or the intention of the message? And that became our discussion. That was our number one discussion.
I
What's
love
more
that.
important?
That's cool.
Yeah. And so research has shown, we read all these research shows that the interpretation of the message is 72% more important than it is the intention of the message. So if I'm intending to say, this is what I'm saying to you, well, sure, you figure it out. That's not communication, right? Communication is you're sending a message with intentionality. Then you have to realize what the interpretation is. Then that comes back to the person who's sending the message and then going, was that interpreted and how was that interpreted and how does that equate with what my intention is? That's what we do with food every day, don't we? Like you guys get it. We sit in the kitchen, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm dorking out about this idea, right? This is so great. Oh, you giggle with all your cooks, right? And then somebody eats it and they're like, what? Like, this is like, what? What is this? And then there's a part of you that's like almost hurts your feeling and you're like, oh, well, screw you guys figure it out, That's not communication. So what is how do we send the intention of what the concept of Vinay is? Well, then this is what we say. Vinay is a place of restoration. It is a place of restoration. Why do we use that word? Well, if you take the word restaurant and you break it down, it's an old French word that means restored. When they said restaurant, what they meant was these travelers will come by and they have a place. And usually restaurants started out as like by a little barn area where it's like the house is connected to it and people had a little inn where they would stay and then they would eat some maybe soup and some day old bread as travelers coming through a city to make it to another city. And in that moment, the idea of the quote unquote restaurant came out because it was a place of restoration, a place you could be restored physically. We believe that in Vinay, that what is the number one thing that as humans, people, I don't care what you identify as, I don't care your where you come from or socioeconomic background, ethnic background. The one thing we all can say we agree on is pain, suffering, and hurt. We all experience that the same way, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what happens. Somebody who loses a family member to somebody who fails a test. How do you gauge which is more important? Like, oh, you failed this test. No big deal. Get over it. No. There's still pain inside. There's still hurt inside. What's the one thing that the human heart, regardless of where we come from, that we're all seeking for? Restoration.
Restoration.
That's a universal thing. It's a universal thing that we have, right?
That's the core of hospitality.
Absolutely. So we say,
okay, cool. We're done. Podcast over. That's it. We nailed it.
So what we do first, and what I truly believe what we do first within the restaurant is we start with our operators. We start with our cooks, our porters, our front of house team, our back of house team, our bar team. We say this too. We say Vinay, the trick, the quote unquote trick or the little joke about Vinay is this. We're not actually a place about food. Food is the byproduct of it. You know what kind of place we're? We're about community.
Food is the catalyst.
Oh
right?
my God.
Yes.
I love this so much.
So the quote unquote trick that we tricked people is to think that we're actually a restaurant, but we're not. We're here about building community. So the community starts within our front house, back house, bar team, to our vendors. That's why vendors are important. That's the community we've been. So then in that community, as that community
connecting all of those threads, right?
Yep. And as the community explodes out of us, what happens? Well, it seeps onto the tables of the diners, and our guests and our diners come in and eat. And after they come and eat and they're so excited, what do? When they leave, just like your friend, right? When she left, she goes, I want to bring more people back to this. I want to bring people. I want to share this with
That's
other
a
people.
W.
Why?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what Vinay is at the core. The reason why we used the name Vinay was it was the refugee camp we came out of. See, you have to realize that in that refugee camp from 1975 to 1992 hosted 90,000 refugees. And out of those 90,000, 90% of them were Hmong, and out of those 90%, majority ended up here in the Midwest. It was an awful, awful, awful place. People died. Did you know that the birth rate of children born in VNI is about 30% mortality rate? Like 30%, 1 out of 3 children died in that refugee camp.
Wow.
My siblings, I had three of us that were born there. We are a statistical anomaly. That all 3 of us were born, and all 3 of us lived through it, and all 3 of us came to America.
Which is
You know, I mean,
probably,
like,
it probably adds to the reasons why you feel a sense of duty almost, right? When it comes to talking about VNI and what it means and what it can mean to the community.
yeah, and then also too, I always tell people, my mom told us, VNI is not where our story ended, son. VNI is where it began. And I firmly believe that, the life of my mom and dad, the sacrificing they made, my dad fighting in this war for the Americans, as these secret soldiers in the secret war, started when he was 12, fought, got into the refugee camp, still kept speaking out to keep fighting with the rebel troops to win the freedom of Laos, so that one day the Hmong people can have their own country. It did that until he was like, this war can't be won, so we had to come to America. So he had to fight his way into America after the promise to be able to come to America if he fought for the Americans and get left behind. Like, so all of this culminates in this place called VNI. So this is where when people come in and they dine with us. I always tell people, like, you get to be a part of mom and dad's story.
Yeah.
I always tell that it's their story. I'm merely an editor. I get to move a few commas here and there, put the indentation here, but it's their story. And I tell people they are, I'm just a quill. They're the actual ink that the story's written out of, and so
That's
what
beautiful.
is a quill without ink? It's feather, it's blown away it's blown away. And so, yeah, so that's in a nutshell, that's VNI. That's why we're excited when people come in. That's why when people come in, like you kind of see in the back here, we have all the photos of VNI, all the photos of mom and dad from the camp, photos of us from the camp. And we want to be very intentional about it,
So, can we talk a little bit about the less creative part of bringing a place like this to life? So, some of the aspects that we try to dig into on this podcast are sort of tangible, strategic business insights. So, stuff like raising capital, finding a location, negotiating a lease, things like that. So, because your restaurant is so fresh, right? It's only been 3 months. We'd love to get some insight from you on the biggest challenges you faced in the process of launching, and if you have any tangible takeaways for people who would like to own and operate a business.
Okay, so I have 3, right? There are 3. Okay, so the first thing is surround yourself with people that can fulfill your weaknesses. You have to do that. I'm not good at QuickBooks. For me to try to figure out QuickBooks is the dumbest idea, because what
That's time
I'm
wasted.
good at. Yes, what I'm good at is being around a fire and throwing meat on fire. Like, that makes sense to me. So I found people that believed in the same mission, vision, values, and goals, but what do they have? They love QuickBooks. They nerd out about QuickBooks. Like going to QuickBooks for them is like making a quick vinaigrette. It's like, yeah, it's all here. What are you guys doing?
Yep.
You need your acid, you need your
That
fat,
needs a
blah, blah, blah,
spreadsheet.
boom. Yes. Great. But it's about finding people that are aligned with your vision of what you want to do, then finding about what are they talented in, and so like lean into that. That's 1. 2, don't be afraid to start small, right? I think the thing with people right now is because of social media and everything, everybody wants to be the next big thing. No. You're going to have to hustle small, and it's okay. It is definitely okay to start small. We started small, and we're slinging it, literally. I had a yakitori grill that I bought it from Amazon for $100, a 10 by 10 pence. That was $80 because it was like 20% off because it was Amazon Prime Day or something. And we would put that all in the back of my little RAV4 at 300,000 miles, and we travel from little spots, doing little events, grilling chicken skewers and Hmong sausages on stick and sticky rice. That's all we did.
That's guerrilla marketing right there.
For sure. and that really, you have those moments where you're starting small like that to really see, do you believe in what you're doing? or is this like the next trend that you're doing this? This is not a get rich fast scheme. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't like that, 10 level marketing thing where it's like, if I sell to 2 people and they sell to 3 people by the end of the month, I'm a billionaire. Like, no. Like, it's going to be agonizing. It's going to be hard. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to, don't be afraid to start small. And then
Just start.
I would say, just do it. Just go start small. And the third thing I learned from Alex Robert, who is a good friend, great restaurateur, James Beard award-winning chef from around here, has a great restaurant, Alma. He said this. He's like, and he told me this. He goes, because I would be like, I'll talk, like he would be like, hey man, anytime you want to talk, just and we'll have coffee. And I'm like, I feel like I failed. I feel like I failed at this. And he goes, you didn't fail. You didn't. You found a way that one way that didn't work. Like that didn't work. Go to the next thing. Don't be afraid of failing.
Just keep moving. Take the hits and keep moving, right?
Yep. This year I turned 40 and I said, maybe because I'm old now, I could say things like this where it's like,
you're old now. I love it.
Yeah. I'm old now.
40 is the new 20, Chef. 40 is the new 20.
Chef, let me tell you, I'm 40, but I'm city miles 40. I'm not sexy Boston 40,
Oh,
I'm city mile 40. Like it's like, dirt road kind of 40s, so I've seen it, 40 going on 85. I love being old too, because I can be grumpy. Most kids don't understand what
it's great when you reach that age, whatever it is, whether it's 35, 40, 45, where you just make the conscious decision that like you're gonna piss people off. It's gonna happen. You're gonna say things that people just are not gonna like, and you're okay with that. Like in your 20s, you're just worried about like climbing the ladder.
It's very freeing.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah.
You have to reach that point. I want to talk about your location at V9, because you chose a really interesting location to me. You're kind of, I guess, I would consider kind of on the cusp of like Sheridan Logan, but you're really more Sheridan Archie than anything.
Yeah.
It's a real neighborhoody type of place, right? Like it's not a new fancy downtown high rise. It's not in the loft section, right? Like what was it about being a neighborhood restaurant that was so important to you?
So the thing with Hmong people is that we don't have a country of our own, and so we're always people on transit. I would say, very nomadic. Our people can be traced back to the foothills of the Yangtze and Yellow River and what is now known as southern China. Because of war, because of all these things, our people always move. So we are constantly moving. I think as a kid who grew up knowing that when people go, hey, what country are you from? And you're like, well, I'm from Thailand. And they're like, oh, or I was born in Thailand. And they're like, oh, you're Thai. I'm like, no, I'm Hmong. Maybe kids will be like, well, how can you be like from Thailand and not Thai? You know? And so it's like super complicated. I wanted a home. I think one thing that dad and mom and dad taught us is what it means to plant roots and build a home. This neighborhood is incredible. This neighborhood, what I love about the neighborhood we're in is this. In the mid 40s and late 40s, this was the place where a bunch of Eastern European refugees came from after World War II. So it was filled with Eastern European folks here. Ukrainians, Russians, Jews, Germans are all here. It's called Northeast here in Northeast. This is the spot where the unwanted came, where it's like, we don't want them downtown Minneapolis. That's where like all the cool metropolitan people are. So they put them here in Northeast, and it's still a place for refugees and immigrants. Across the street, Laurel, voted one of the best restaurants in the country. James Beard, top, place. Literally share the same alleyway right behind this wall. You got young Joni and Kim's spot right there. About half a mile this way, but that way. Christina Wynn from Hi, who won James Beard last year. Like it is so incredible that this is still Diane
a rich
Moore,
landscape
place 3 blocks away. This is still a place for refugees and immigrants. I love that. It's become a family, small houses with small, young families and stuff. People are walking. We took over a brewery. This used to be a brewery, Dangerous Man Brewery. Dangerous Man Brewery was
Oh my
one.
gosh, I know exactly where you are. I've been to
Yes,
Dangerous Man, or I had
yes,
been. Yes, okay. So we came to Minneapolis last year to go see Taylor Swift because
yeah.
it was cheaper to fly to Minneapolis and stay in an Airbnb for the weekend than it was to get tickets in Boston. And so our friend is from Minneapolis, and so we said
Yeah,
like let's all go. And before the concert, she took us to Dangerous Man.
yeah, Dangerously. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay,
we're
so I
here,
know,
Dangerously.
yeah, I know exactly where you're located. Okay, cool.
Yes. So Dangerous Man was here for 10 years. 12 years ago, they helped, it's called the Surly Act or the Surly Law, which basically allowed breweries to have tap houses. They changed the legislation laws so that breweries, they were part of that with Surly, the big brewery, that changed the way the breweries industry here in Twin Cities blown up. Some of the best beers come out of here, and they were one of the first. They're also, when they came here, was, no, they were here open for 10 years, but when they came here about 11, 12 years ago, when they set their place up, they built into this community. So Sarah and Rob, the owners, are dear friends of mine. So when they left the building and we took it over, I promised them that hopefully, Lord willing, for the next 10 years and plus, we're going to take care of the community that you guys already set up for us. Let us handle it now. Let us take care of this community, this corner on 13th and 2nd, and it's been really, really cool.
That's awesome.
So your path has included working with some really awesome chefs, including Gavin Kaysen. Gavin has a really powerful approach to recruiting and mentoring and the development of a team.
Gavin's
What
coming on
did
our
you?
show next week or in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
We can ask him about this.
I know.
What did you take away from working at a restaurant like Spoon and Stable as it relates to creating great teams?
Again, two things I learned from them. I'll break it down to two things. I think the first thing I learned is system. It's very important to have system and know how to work within that system. Like some
Dig
people
into
might
that.
say
What do you mean?
regiment.
What do you mean by systems?
Okay,
That's like a broad
so
term.
for example, yep. So you can look at, okay, so this is the way I look at it. You can look at it as this, right? The whole like, oh yeah, chefs and cooks, we're like this like rock band that blah, blah, blah. And we're like so cool. It's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, you still need to make great music, right? Because you see that lifestyle, you're like, yeah, look at them. They're just back there just winging it. There's no such thing as winging it, because the truth of the matter is, I don't care how dirty or whatever you look back there. Like there's a dude, like, his job is to make sure all the orders are right. He knowing your mise en place, knowing your pars. That's a system. What I learned at Spoon and Stable was that the system actually starts with putting on your chef coat, having a clean apron, having a clean station, making sure you have your 10 folded, blue towels or whatever, the system actually starts from there. And just, so it's still stuck in me, every time somebody from the past they yell out the ticket coming in, I'm still responding, "We chef," which is like, there's like a up and down side of that where you're like, wow, it's like you haven't trained, but all those little things help you prepare for all the minute little details, So what was really cool is I learned like, Chris and I, at that point, Chris was the chef de cuisine, but he's the executive chef now. So Chris would, like in a way, just make sure, hey, you have to have all your stuff in place. Have all your mise en place, have everything in place. Why? Because there's a system. Because if that little, kink in the armor falls apart, then the whole thing falls.
That's right.
And so it's like we all depended on each other. There's this ecosystem. And I learned that, and that's being able. I mean, we teach that in our own kitchen. We might not be wearing chef coats and white aprons, but we still teach that system there here. We still talk about it. We still say, hey, like at the end of the night guys, closing, give us what your prep list is, because when the morning guys get here at 8, they're gonna pump it out. You know why they're gonna pump it out? Because then you have everything prepped for your evening. So all you got to worry about is operating the line, and that's it.
Yep.
You're not worried going, oh, shit, do we need 2 more quarts of the sauce? No, not at all. Because you know why? The mornings I got your back, and you get their back by letting know what
systems. So systems are huge. What about the team kind of part of it? Because you've developed an incredible team now for Vinay. Talk about kind of how that has influenced you and what your take is on kind of recruiting and mentoring those that are younger in our industry?
So my mentor in college gave me this acronym. It spells out the word FAT, F-A-T, right? What kind of people are we looking for? We're looking for fat people, as he would say, right?
Oh,
And
I like where this is
FAT.
going already.
Yeah. So F stands for faithful. People that are faithful, they show up. Now, you guys know in our industry, if you show up, you're like 80%. But, just show up.
Just be here on time, please, for the love of God.
Yes, I'm talking to high school kids who go, dude, I feel like I'm a hustler mentality. I can come work in your kitchen. I'm like, bro, send me an email that doesn't say, yo, chef, send me an email that says greetings or sir, and show up on time. That's
Show
all
up.
I need you. Show up.
Yeah.
So faithful to showing up, being here. I get that stuff happens. We work with people. Stuff happens. Yeah. But letting us know, faithful into our vision, mission, values, and goals. A stands for accountable. Be accountable for your actions. Accountability isn't good or bad. That's what I really learned. Accountability is saying, yep, I messed that up. Chef, I did this. This is what happened. Awesome. There's nothing you can mess up so bad that we can't put all our heads together and fix it. Don't worry about that. So
Amen.
faithful, accountable, and T is teachable. You gotta be teachable. I don't know how many young guys I get come here and go, well, at Barrio, we did da 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 da. Like, that's great. But we're not at Barrio. We're not at whatever. So we're like, oh yeah, I did this here. Da, da, da. That's great, man. But young chef, baby chef, before you start telling me all this stuff, I want you to listen. We have a few baby chefs. We call them baby chefs.
Baby
I just need baby, you're adorable. I get that your knife is Damascus steel and it's $500. But I tell you that, and to be really honest, I tell you that Luis Senior on his his safe knife, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Kitchen knife will outcook you any day. Know why?
That's right.
Because the homeboy is 20 years into this and he doesn't need a $500 Damascus steel knife to make him good at what he does.
And no matter how good he is, he's still teachable,
Absolutely. And that's so incredible. Yeah. So faithful, accountable, teachable. These are the people we're looking for, and these are the people we're recruiting.
I love it. I want to talk a little bit about marketing because, when I think about what you're doing, and the story that you represent, there's a lot of educational component in that, right? And, Hmong culture, I think may need an explanation for a lot of diners in some ways. And so how do you approach telling the story of Hmong food and ultimately finding ways to kind of market your restaurant concept? And what advice would you have for maybe other folks that are, in the ethnic operating community who want to figure out how to break through to their guests?
Don't be afraid of who you are. That's the first thing. I think when we first started our first pop-up, to be completely honest, our first iteration of our name wasn't Union Hmong Kitchen, our first spot, our first location. It was called Union Kitchen. I didn't want the word Hmong there to deter people because then it would be too hard to try to explain.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, to be completely honest. And then actually my buddy who ran a PR group said, screw it. He's a white Jewish dude. He's like, screw it, bro. This is what you're going to do. We're going to call it Union Hmong Kitchen. I'm like, I don't know, Joseph. And he's like, why? He's like, trust me. And I'm like, dude, but I don't know. People are not going to and he goes, and this is what he said to me. He said, cook it the way you cook it, they will come. Trust me. And the people who don't, or the people who are weird about it or don't want to come, that's not what you want anyway. And when we unapologetically went that way, it was just like, okay, great, awesome. It had this ability to get people to the table and then we could tell them the story. We always say that if you want to know our people, you got to know our food because our cultural DNA is intricately woven into the foods that we eat. You want to know us, you got to know our food. And that's where we get our kind of our mantra, our motto, whatever we talk about all the time is that every dish has a narrative. You got to follow that narrative long enough, close enough to get the people behind the food. And once you're there, it's actually not about food, it's about people. Food is a catalyst into cultivating great relationships. We firmly believe that. And that didn't happen to me until I did it. And I was like, what are the foods that I love that, rejuvenates my soul? It got me back to the table, literally the table of my mom and dad, and heard their stories. And this was probably 13 years ago. And I heard their stories and I wasn't trying to be so-and-so here, and here. It was just at the end of the day, I tell people, man, if you sip all of this down, I'm just going and I'm looking at my mom and dad and I feel 8-year-old kid and go, Mom and Dad, are you proud? Like, are you happy? That's all I'm really trying to do. And like the food that we get to do tells their story, and we happen to be Hmong, so it also tells our Hmong story. And we just don't change from it. Everything on our social media, it's about telling stories. My father is an incredible storyteller, and so it's telling stories, and we're gonna use our canvas is food. We're gonna use that.
It's such an integral way of connecting with other cultures, right? When you travel somewhere new, you want to try or I want to try their food immediately. I want to be steeped in their food to learn about who they are. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I love the idea of cooking wonderful food and people will come, because I just think delicious food is something everyone can agree on,
Yeah. I think too, it's about developing relationships with the guests, right? And I think it sounds like that's something that's so important to you. And I think other operators need to understand the value in really developing those relationships with your guests, because it's about trust at the end of the day, right? And I think when you finally are able to have some breakthroughs and get your guests to understand what it is you're doing and what your vision is and the story that you're telling, you automatically start to get more buy-in, right? And that's when the trust really happens. And that's when the stories, the importance of what you're trying to do gets understood and distilled down into a moment that's a memorable experience for somebody. Like that's huge, right? And so in that way, food is the catalyst, like we've been saying. It's so true.
How much of what you cook is based on what you experienced as a child? I know you spent time in this refugee camp, so I'm not sure how much access your parents had to cooking or what kind of food you ate, but are a lot of the recipes that you make for people at your restaurant, are those based on food memories? Did you learn those recipes later in life from your family? How does that all fit in?
Yeah, a lot of it is based on food memories. A lot of things too is just, when we came to this country, my mom had like canned meats, and all that stuff, and she just used it. And so to say that that's not authentically quote unquote Hmong, it's like, no, that's what we had. So that's where I get real fired up about the word tradition and the word authentic. And it's almost
me
like, is it
too.
authentic?
Yeah.
Is it? I'm like,
Yeah.
so
Authenticity is
like,
either like a mask that people wear or it's like the real thing. There's no in between, right?
yes. So when it comes to tradition, I always say tradition changes. It's progress, has to progress forward. How do we lose tradition? Well, when it's stunted and it doesn't grow, that's how we lose tradition. So for example, like, we have family, like Christmas tradition, right? But when my brother, he went and got married, he has his own family. They have family tradition. Is their tradition less authentic than the ones they have when we were kids? No, because he created his own new tradition. That's what tradition is. But when people look at tradition, they'll go, "Oh, do you guys make traditional Hmong food?" And I'm like, "What do you even mean?" Majority, okay, so I shouldn't say majority. Some of the people who say that are white people who go, "Do you guys make traditional food?" I'm like, "Well, why? I don't want to say it, but you're white. Like, how you have the gall to come here and ask me, is this traditional Hmong food?"
Right.
Like, it's like, do you see how that question is really weird?
Yeah.
And, but you kind of just have to be like, yeah, you know what? We pull from So for example, my mom and dad have a garden that's like, they call it a garden, but it's like 10 acres, a farm. And everything that they everything that they harvest and grow on that comes out all to the restaurant. So they literally sector off of 3 to 3.5 acres of that garden is just all peppers. And mom makes this pepper sauce for us, which we get about 150 gallon a year that she does for us, right? So for someone to say, "Oh, I ate there," it doesn't taste like traditional Hmong hot sauce. It was grown by a Hmong grandma, harvested by Hmong grandmas and aunties, then made by a Hmong grandma. Then, like, what? Like, what do we have to do?
Right. That's what makes it Hmong. Yeah.
Yes. And so what happens with what we do is this. The foods that we grew up with were traditional foods in my family that we grew up and I ate and I loved. Don't get me wrong. Look, at the end of the day, I grew up most of my childhood in like Pennsylvania Dutch country area there, in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And then I grew up in Wisconsin. I'm all like meat and potatoes boy. Like, dude, man, freaking Culver's from where we are around here, your butter burger, double butter burger, cheese curds. Yeah, man, I love that crap, But I also love, our braised, pork neck with Hmong mustard green dish. Like, I love that too. And so, like, we can live
But I'm
in
getting on a
that,
plane.
we can live in that, both that culture. And I think that it always has to be like, because, and I don't blame it on Netflix Chef Table, but they created this beautiful thing about food, right? So when people watch it, they're like, oh, to really be authentic, you have to
Right.
harvest the tree bark that's from Laos, that where your parents grew up in.
Right.
No, you don't, because you watch a documentary and they shot it beautifully. You think that's how it is. You don't actually. We live in a world where it's progressing forward, and we're living in a world where monk food itself is a fetus. A fetus is nothing compared to food culture traditions of, like, let's say French food, let's say Italian food, because our food, we didn't have a written language until 1948. That was our first. Before that, everything was oral. So one thing, what happens in an oral language society, as the elders pass away, their stories die, the things
They
die,
get
and new
lost.
things have to start. Think about how people can go, oh yeah, we found this recipe from, this castle in England and it's 8,000 years old, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they had they could write, and that's how you record things. We didn't have our own written language. The missionaries used English letters until 1949. I mean, come on, so a lot of stuff that we learned was passed down from son to father, mother to daughter, whatever, family to family to family. It was passed down. Right now, my generation, we are literally just writing some of the first stuff right now. So we're working on a book project like that.
I was just going to say that means that means the cookbook's coming.
Yeah. So that is just literally just the beginning of. I mean, there's a few Hmong cookbooks out there, but it's more of a like a textbook, right? It's almost more like, hey, here are the things you use, like, But my mom,
it's almost like more anthropological than it is, right?
And
culinary
and it
centric.
It doesn't even tell much of a story. It's more like, this is what we use, boom, boom, And if you can't find this, like, you can find this at the grocery, like a Kroger's or whatever, This is where you can find. This is what you can replace it with, So we have that. The other thing too is my mom said this to me, and I love it. I learned how to cook rice literally standing by my mom, where she put my hand in the water as a little kid, and she wanted me to feel the kernels of rice to go through. She goes, son, you have to do that. You have to agitate it. That's how you do the starch out. You can't do that in a recipe, right? Because it's so funny when food media goes, what's the recipe for sticky rice? I'm like, rice and water, dude. Like, I don't know. Like, you can't. There's no. The next part that I'm going to teach you, you have to be here, So we always say it's not about a recipe, it's about relationships. That's what's the most important to us. It's about the relationship that's connected through the passing of the food down. And sometimes that food gets changed a little bit, and that's okay, because that's how tradition progresses forward, And so a lot of our dishes here, some Hmong people will say, well, that's not traditional. Okay, maybe to your family, right? But ours, we did it. So it comes. So that's why VNI is so focused. It's a love letter to my mom and dad, not a love letter to the Hmong people. It's a love letter to my mom and dad. And so I say, they're Hmong. They grew up Hmong. They taught me Hmong traditions. I'm a Hmong kid. Yeah, it's Hmong.
Yeah.
So alongside your culinary talents, we've seen you a lot on TV. Can you give us some perspective
out there
on how to parallel process being a chef's chef, right? You really identify as being a cook, but also, but also you're building your brand and breaking into the world of food media.
Yeah, so the funniest thing is, I think that's a lot of people that are from the TV section or whatever, the media section, they think it's an act. So I've been stopped before at cafes, at wherever, where there was one gentleman who goes, dude, you're really good at playing the part. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, like the whole cooking, being an outdoors person, cooking, grilling, like, that's an act, right? I'm like, no. because to his point, which it does make sense, to his point, he says, well, a lot of these guys are like quote unquote chefs, but they don't actually, cook because they do it for TV. And it made me so pissed, man. I was just like, screw all you guys out there.
I'd be pissed too.
You know what I'm saying? I'm
well,
like,
you've been breaking down animals since your dad, you're
yeah,
standing next to your dad with a
absolutely.
butcher knife. I know that.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's
yeah.
real.
Yeah, so part of me goes, if I wanted to be a quote unquote TV chef, you think I spend like 40, 70 hours a week in the restaurant? Like, absolutely not. Like you wouldn't, you wouldn't do that. If you wanted to be a TV chef, like, trust me, we wouldn't open a restaurant. That's the last headache you want. Right? Like, I only have to manage myself, and then I can just appear and then leave, and they have everything set up for me. Yeah, it's a great life,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the joke around here. The joke too is that servers will get asked, if is he as nice as he is on TV as he is in real life. And I'm like, what'd you say to them? They're like, well, I want them to tip me well. So I said, you're wonderful. So it's not something I sought out at first. It's still something I don't seek out. To be completely honest. I see this as another vehicle to educate people about Hmong food and Hmong tradition. That's what we get to do.
That's right.
What's so cool is we get to pick the projects that we want to pick. So when we do for the outdoor channel, the show is called Feral. We travel the country. We find animals that are invasive or destructive to the ecosystem or most people won't eat. I go with a guide and we hunt them down and then we cook them on the spot. What's so cool about that was when that concept was presented to me a few years ago by the Patricks, from Intuitive. Yeah. I kind of just said, bro, that's like what my uncles do on the weekend. Like, this show is so Hmong that's not even funny. Oh, you're going to put us into the woods and we're going to find some weird animal out there that most people won't eat and we'll eat it? Yeah. And I told this to my dad, and my dad goes, your uncles and I could go clear out a woods easy in one day. And I've seen them do that with bullfrogs, right? I'm big. Look, yeah, you guys messed up the ecosystem in this bullfrog pond area. Look, we had good eating that morning, though. And I'm like, Dad, equal balance is a little true thing.
Man, I don't know if I could do bullfrog. I don't know.
Oh, dude, that was freaky. But yeah, they're like, watch out for the gators because they come and snap at you at night. And I'm like, what? Yeah, so what was so cool about the show is I get to travel the country and talk to people about Hmong people. I got to sit with an elder from the Palos Pueblo people out in New Mexico in their ancestral land. And I talked to them about the Hmong people and the Hmong culture and the Hmong tradition and how our people, even though we're halfway across the world, on the other side of the world, we believe that if you take care of the land will take care of you. And when I said that to him, he's like, your people sounds like my people. I don't know your people, but they sound like my people. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's so awesome.
I'm down in Florida in the bayous. They're hunting snake with a guy named Dusty Crumb, who, the name says it all. One of the top python hunters in the country, by the way, who doesn't wear shoes. He likes to be barefoot because, as he says it, he said, son, when I go into the Everglades, I like to be barefoot because I'm one with the earth, son.
Dude,
and I'm like,
just raw dogging it in the swamp.
Yeah. And here's the crazy thing about him. The whole time we were filming, he was smoking pot. And I'm like, how are you so fast? That's all I'm saying. You were moving fast. Like, imagine if you weren't smoking pot. How fast would you be in real life? He'd be like, okay, let's go. He put his little, pipe down and he'd be like, let's go. And he's like, boom, 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 catching pythons.
Damn.
And here I am talking to him about the hill. I'm like, we were known as the hill people, the hill country people. And he goes, I'm a hillbilly. You are the hill people. We're just two guys eating snakes together, And it was so cool. And this is on the Outdoor Network, right? And this is, and it will be real here. And with, the political season coming up, it's the certain demographic that watches that show. Let's be honest, right? With that votes a certain way, that talks a certain way, whatever you want to call it. But it's so cool that I get to stand and be there and talk about Hmong people.
Hell yeah.
Talk about how this is like a big cultural thing for us. And one of the biggest joys in my life was going down hunting iguanas. And when we hunt the iguanas down in Florida, before I went, I showed my dad what we were hunting. I'm like, hey, iguanas. And he goes, oh yeah, we used to hunt for that when I was a little boy. And he would say, and he would tell, and then he told me, he goes, this is how we cooked it. And so I got to do the exact same dish he did as a little boy 60 some years ago in the mountains of Laos, in northern Laos. We did it on the show.
That tail's meaty.
Oh yeah, in that hind quarter, dude, it's like that. Thick thighs there. I don't know what fruits are
big
eating,
muscles back there pushing them along as they do their They do their thing through the grass.
Treat all animals the same. I look at them and I'm just like, you got some, you guys. So when we did the squirrel episode, I was like, oh yeah, you guys got some good nuts out here. That omega-3 fatty,
That's right. Yeah, they have a great diet, right?
Yeah, it's pure
Oh my
cut,
God. Who is the one person that you have hired that has helped transform your business?
I would say, our GM, Jonathan Jansen, and we've known each other for a while. He was kind of out of the business world. He was out of the world for a little bit, but incredible operator. And then we actually, he helped consult to help us find an executive team, and eventually he became, the GM. And we're like, dude, what are we doing? Like, I felt like we're like dating. I'm like, what are we doing? Let's make it official, And so, yeah, it's incredible. And it's so incredible to work with somebody and have a partner who it's like, you guys believe in everything the same. And it's like, I could be gone, and whatever decision you're making, I know that you're thinking for the company as a whole, for the organization as a whole, you know what I'm saying? And there's no like, well, let me double check your voice, It's incredible. It makes us move so much faster.
What's been the most successful marketing decision you've made for your business?
I think the intentionality in our social media, I think that on our personal stuff, I think that people like to see like the behind the scenes of what we do every day in and day out. It's not as sexy as everyone thinks, it's like, this is how the sausage is made.
People do like to come behind that velvet rope, don't they?
It's like, somebody once asked me, goes, they should only do like a YouTube, like day in of like life of Yia over there. I'm like, there's all the emails in the mornings. You thought like, okay, hey, nice email. Like, that's not exciting. But I would say then, whatever we do, whatever we put out, we are really intentional about how we tell the story because we get to communicate with our photos and with our videos. So we want to make sure that story is intentional, especially on the restaurants, like Instagram or social media. And we want to entice people up there and ask more questions.
What is the one tool that you use every day? Can be anything.
Yeah, my phone. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like as much as I was actually talking to a friend about this, because everyone always says, "Oh, these phones are so evil." It's like, no, they're not. They're just an instrument. They have no evil, or they're not good or bad. It's just an instrument. But it's how you use them. I think that having my phone and being able to use Slack on it, or emails, texting. It's like, even it sounds super dorky, but even with all the apps you have now, where it's like, oh, we got sent out invoices, boom, I can do my invoices here, sitting at the doctor's office or something like that.
Yeah, sitting in the airport lounge, flying to go capture snakes with Dusty Crumb.
Absolutely, yeah. Except when you get out there is no service. You know what I'm saying? So, and then, yeah.